Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Code Cycler YouTube channel. In this episode, I'm going to be attempting to code the game Space Invaders using the p5.js framework, so in JavaScript in the browser. And I'll put the code that accompanies this up on my website as well for you to have a look at once I'm done and have a play of the game. So to start off with p5.js, you need two things. You need the index.html file, which has got all the libraries, p5.js libraries, and then you also need a separate file, which is called sketch.js, which contains the setup and draw function. So in that I've created a canvas that's 600 by 400. We'll just change that to 600 by 600 for this game. If we save that, and it has a black background, so we can see that in the window on the right. So I'm using the brackets editor, so every time I save it, the window on the right should update. The first thing we want to do is we want to create a player. I'm going to do this using a constructor function, so bear with me. And we're going to declare certain variables from this, so we're going to say this dot x, and we'll initialize it at the center, so I'll say 250, 275. This dot y equals, we want it quite close to the bottom, so we'll say 550. This dot w, so the width equals 50. This dot h for height equals 20. And we'll say this dot draw player is going to be a function, and it is going to, we're going to call the rectangle function at this dot x, this dot y, this dot w, this dot height. Actually, we'll just go fill to 55, no stroke. So that's going to make a white rectangle at the location we've given it with the dimensions that we've given here. So let's just check this is working. So we're going to create a variable called p, and in setup we'll say p equals a new player, and then in draw we can say p dot draw player. If we save this, we can see our player down here at the bottom of the screen. So that's a good start. So now we've drawn our player, we want to move it. So we're going to say, we're going to make it so that the player position is the mouse position. So I'll say this dot move player equals function. We'll say this dot x equals mouse x minus this dot w divided by 2, because we want the mouse to be the center of the player. So if we save that, if we call it p dot move player, we'll save it, and now we can see that the mouse, as we move the mouse, the player is moving along with it, staying in the center. So that's good. So we'll just close the player function for now. The next thing we're going to need is some enemies. Function enemy. And for this, we want to create a row of enemies across the top of the screen. They're going to move along and down. So we'll go var e equals an array, empty array, and we'll say for var I equals 0. I is less than, let's say, 8 to start with, I++, and we're going to say e index I equals new enemy. Okay, we're going to pass in an x and a y into this enemy function, and we'll say this dot x equals the x that we give it, and this dot y equals the y that we give it. And we'll say this dot r equals, just say 20 pixels for now. So we'll make these ellipses or circles. So this dot draw enemy equals function, I can't spell, and we'll say fill 0, 255, 0, so that'll make a green color, and we'll go no stroke, ellipse at this dot x, this dot y, this dot r, this dot r. Okay, and we're going to pass into it the value, which will be, we'll say I times 40 plus 40, and we'll position it at 40 pixels down as well. So let's just see if we pass in these values. Go there we go, we've got our enemy up at the top. They're a bit small, so I'll just make it a bit bigger, make them 30 pixels. There we go, that's a bit easier. And we'll just change our canvas slightly, so make it 400 wide. There. We'll leave it at 600. And we'll actually make it 60. 60. 60. There we go, so spaced out a bit more. Too far. 40. We'll leave it at 40. Okay, so we have our enemy. We want to make him move. This dot move enemy function, and we'll say this dot x, or speed x, and we'll set it equal to, we'll set it to 5 for now, we'll change it in a minute. And we'll say this dot x plus equals this dot speed x. And we need some clauses in here, so if this dot x greater than the width, or if this dot, or sorry, if this dot x is less than 0, what we want to do is we want to say this dot y plus equals 40. So we're going to shift the row down so it gets close to the bottom. Say this dot speed x multiply equals -1, and reverse the direction. So if we call this move enemy function up in the draw function, let's go see what we get. So we can see now the enemy are moving down the screen every time they hit, so that's good. And they're getting closer and closer to to the player until eventually they'll hit it, in which case the enemy wins. So we need a function for this. Should create down here. I'll put this dot player hit equals function, and this will just be a check. So we say if this dot x is greater than p dot x, and this dot x is less than p dot x plus p dot w, and this dot y is greater than p dot y. Declare another variable in the player quickly. I'll say this dot player hit equals false. This dot player hit equals true. True. Let me just make some notes here. And draw player. Move. No. What we can do in here is we can say, we can also call this function in here. Don't know why I copied that. E index I dot player hit, and then we'll write a separate function down here. So we'll go function, we'll call it end game. If p dot player hit that should be p dot player hit. If p dot player hit, background equals, or we'll call background and we'll say 255 0, 0 will go so that here. P dot x 255, and we'll put some text on the screen that says game over. and we'll put it somewhere in the center. Oh wait, sorry, my mistake. We'll go fill. Text size, we'll make it big, we'll make it 32. And we'll say game over, and we'll put it at 250 x 250 y. We'll see what that looks like. So if we save this, I probably should call the end game function in here. And just for the test, we'll make the speed 20. So we can see the enemies moving down, enemies moving down, enemies moving down, enemies moving down, game over. Okay, that's too far over, so we'll change the x of the text to 200. I'll just check again. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's better, that's more central. So I'm happy with that. So we've got this rule for if the game is over. Well, this is how the game's over. But how can the player win? So it's back to 5. Okay. What we need to do is we need to create a weapon for the player, something that it can fire at the enemy. We'll call var drops. And we'll say in here, drops equals new drop. And again, you guessed it, we're going to do another constructor function. Drop. So this dot x, I'll make this equal to mouse x plus p dot. No, we can just make it equal to mouse x. No, sorry, I don't want to make it equal to mouse x. I wanted to make it equal to p dot x plus p dot w divided by 2. This dot y, we'll have it equal to p dot y to start with. And we'll make it these circles as well. So I'll say this dot r equals 5 pixels. And we'll call our draw function again. So I'll say this dot draw drop equals function. And we'll say fill 0, 0, 255. No stroke. And ellipse at this dot x, this dot y, this dot r, this dot r. And we'll save that. And it would help if I called that. So we can go drops dot draw drop. There we go. So now we can see we've got a drop in the center of the player that follows it around. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to fire it. And we're going to say, we're actually going to do this slightly differently. We're going to go function, mouse pressed. No, hold on, give me 1 second. I just want to check something in the P5.js reference. This is what I do if I'm not sure. I just look in here. I want to see the best way to move it. So I want to get it to fire if the mouse is pressed. Mouse, if mouse is pressed. Yes, that was what I wanted to do. So I go function, mouse pressed. And we'll say drop dot y plus equals 20. And we'll just check to see if this works. No. Where are you? Click within the image. Mouse pressed, value equals 0, drop dot y. Because it's drops dot y. No, I want to be clever. I want to say this dot fired equals false. And we'll say drops dot fired equals true. And what we'll do is this dot fire drop function, and we'll say if this dot fired, so if this dot fired is true, then we're going to say this dot y minus equals 20. And then if this dot y less than 0, this dot fired equals false. This dot y equals p dot y. So we can reset it back to where it starts. And I've got an error because I have done I haven't called fire drop. That's why. Draw drop. Drop stop fire. Drop. Where else is my error? Where is my error? Drop stop fired. Let's just comment this out for a moment. Okay, give me 1 second. So this is how you troubleshoot a problem. You can go into Developer Tool, Unexpected Syntax on line 98. Equals function. That's why it's not working. There we go. So we can see that now we can fire and reset, fire and reset, fire and reset, fire and reset, fire and reset. And we can keep saying this. All the way along. At the moment, we're not removing any of the enemy, but we can see we've got a mechanism to fire something at it. So that's good. Don't forget your syntax is the key message there. Right, the next thing we want to do is we want to do a check. Hold on, I'm just going to tidy this up so I don't lose track of it. And fire drop. And draw drop. And drop constructor. Okay. So now we're going to do a check to see if an enemy or if the drop that we fire hits an enemy. So we'll call this a function. Check drop hit enemy. For. So we've got to use our for loop up here. Var I equals 0, I is less than e dot length, I plus plus. If. So what do we want to know? We want to know drop, drops dot x minus drops dot r divided by 2 is greater than e index I dot x minus e index I dot r and let's copy this. Drops index I x plus the r plus and is less than and now we'll run this with the y. This is a long check. Y, y, y. We're going to set e index I dot bin hit, we'll say is false, true. And we'll say that if we go into the enemy, this dot bin hit false. And we'll say we can draw the enemy if this dot bin hit equals false. You can draw the enemy. And perhaps most importantly as well, move this over. Now, I've got an error because I have not called. What have I done? So I need to call this check in the draw function. And where else? The error. Unexpected in line 125. I didn't need the dot there. Okay, so we can see now we can take them out, but in some cases we are taking out more than one. So let's just run that again. And we want to, what we actually want to do is we want to set fired to false. And we'll move this a second. If this dot fired false, reset our y. And let's say drops dot fired false. Let's just not move the enemy for a second, and we'll just test this to see. Okay, so if it goes in between, we're getting a hit. I think it's because I've done this. Because that should be minus r divided by 2. So let's try this now. So if I fire here, nothing. Why are you now not removing? What have I done? Okay, so I've done something silly here, so let me just check this. This drops. Let's comment this out for 1 second, and I'll write it again. If drops dot x is greater than e index I dot x and drops dot x is less than e index I dot x plus e index I dot r, and drops dot y is greater than e index I dot y, and drops dot y is less than e index I dot y plus e index I dot r. There we go. No. Let's try that again. That's why we got an error. Right. So I was right with the first one, I'm just wrong in my syntax somewhere. So bear with me one moment. Sorry about this. Yeah, I just need to get rid of this. There we go, fixed. So we fixed that. That was a bit silly, wasn't it? But now we've got a system where we can remove the enemy. So let's keep track of that. We go var enemy left, and we'll say enemy left equals enemy, no, sorry, equals e dot length, equals e dot length, and we'll say enemy dot, no, sorry, being really thick, enemy left minus minus. And we'll put some text in the bottom so you can see. So in our draw function down here, I'll say text size, so 12, fill 255, text clever, enemy left, and we'll put it right at the bottom, so we'll put it at 550 and 575. And I've made an error in how I write that. Enemy left equals 8, and as we fire 7, 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So we can have in the way we created a lose game function, we can make a win game function. Function. Win game. If enemy left is equal to 0, background we'll say is 0, 255, 0. We'll say text. Let's go to our in-game function a second. Just take all of this. And say you've won. And if we save, I'll just check this works. If enemy left equals 0, we've got to call it, because that would be clever. VY, that's not working. So I'll try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've won. So here we go, we've got the basics of the game. And if we just make the enemy move, let's just set that speed to 2 for now. I spotted an error. You can hit an enemy that's been hit already. So in that check drop hit enemy, we've got to say if e index I dot bin hit is false, then do the check. There we go. Okay, so now we can wipe out the enemy without getting a negative enemy left, so that's good. And we'll say as well, do I need to say anything else? No, I don't, because everything else is false. So that's good, that's fixed that. Loop. End. If bin hit false, end false, check. Okay, so we just commented that there, so it all makes sense. So that's part of it, we've got this sorted now. What we need is a boss that can fire back at our player. So again, we'll go var boss, and we'll say boss equals new boss, and let's create our function. And we'll say this dot x equals 275. This dot y equals 0. This dot w equals 50. This dot height equals 20. This dot, hold on, sorry, I just want to change one thing really quickly. So I noticed that in an error. So player hit, this dot speed equals 0. Yeah, so why would that? Sorry about this. I think I know why. I'll do another if loop. P dot player hit false. That. Okay, so that should fix that problem. Sorry, I just noticed that and it bugged me. Right. So where was I? Let's draw our boss. So we'll say this dot draw boss function, and we'll say fill 255 0 0. No stroke. Rect. This dot x. This dot y. This dot w. This dot h. And let's go in here. Boss dot draw boss. There we go. So we got our boss in the center of the screen. So now we'll say, end draw boss. This dot move boss function, and we'll say if this dot x plus this dot w divided by 2 is less than p dot x plus p dot w divided by 2. This dot x. So if the boss's x is less than, or if the center of the boss is less than the player x, less than the player center, we need to add something to it. So we go plus equals 3. Is, and if it's greater than that, minus 3. And we need to call the function, obviously. That was silly. Boss.move boss. So now we can see we can make the boss move. And if we fire it, we can see we're hitting in the center and we can move. Okay, brilliant. So we got the boss set up. Now the boss needs a weapon. So we'll say this dot wx equals this dot x plus this dot w divided by 2. So we're saying the weapon x is going to be halfway along the boss. And this dot wy equals this dot y plus this dot h. And we'll say this dot wr equals 10. Oh, I've got to hurry up, see how long I can, see if I can get this done quite quickly. And we'll say this dot yeah, we can call it in here. I'll say, if I can spell, an ellipse. This dot wx, this dot wy, this dot wr, this dot wr. And now we need to update it as well. So we'll say in the move boss function, we'll just call it this dot. So now we can see the weapon is on the end of the boss and it's following it around as we move. So we need to create a way to fire the weapon. This dot fire weapon equals function. I'm going to have it firing continuously. And all we're going to say is this dot wy plus equals, let's call it 10. We go boss dot fire weapon. So we can see it fires and it sort of curves to follow where the boss is moving. So that's good. So that's the first thing. If this dot y is greater than height, this dot, no, not this dot y, sorry, this dot wy is greater than height, this dot wy equals this dot y. So bring it back to the start. So we'll just check this works. Fires, back to the start, fires again, back to the start, fires, back to the start, fires, back to the start, fires, back to the start. There we go. So you can see it's firing along the screen nicely. What else are we going to say? We need what happens if it hits the player. If this dot wx greater than p dot x and this dot wx less than p dot x plus, why have I made that capital? Sorry, I'm being thick now. This is a long video, so it's taking a while. Plus p dot w and this dot wy greater than p dot y and this dot wy less than p dot y plus p dot h. What are we going to say? We're going to call, or we're going to say p dot being hit equals true. And we'll also say w speed and we'll say this dot w speed equals 0. Why has that done that? P dot bin hit equals true. No, because it's player hit. There we go. So we got the game over. The other thing we could do, well, so this is effectively the game now. So if I just refresh the page, you can see we can fire, we can hit the enemy. Or we avoid being hit ourselves. But if we do get hit, you see we call the game over function, and that's it. Finished. Or if we take out the enemy, we can win the game. So that's where I'm going to leave this video for now, because it's quite a long video. But what you can do is you can go away and play with this. You can think about how you can add more levels to the game. So maybe you can make it that if you win the game once, you create the level again, but you add on more enemy. You add another row of the enemies that are moving around, or you increase the speed of the enemy, or you can make it so that you have a number of lives. That's an interesting way to do it as well. I'll give some examples on my website, codecycler.wix.com. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter for more information about projects that I'm doing. Thanks very much for your time today. I know this was a long video. See you soon.